crowdfunding for GoldenFox pictures to support him on my patrons, including Science Steel Rail, Jack Foley, Courtney Bright, Thomas Fan 3751, Brandon Bishop, and Azure Lore. Thank you all so much for your support. For any future updates and upcoming projects you would like to know about, support me on Patreon for bi-weekly blogs for any works in progress. That being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. So for many years now, I've reviewed episodes of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, but what I also reviewed at some point was something I haven't touched upon in a while, fan works. This roots back all the way to 2013 when I reviewed works such as Snowjob, Double Rainboom, and Children of the Night, just to name a few. And eventually I fell out of that session since I started reviewing Season 4. But I've wanted to get back into it, and the most that's been on my mind lately is what I think is the best way to get back into reviewing fan works once again. Warp Out's Lullaby for a Princess. Easily one of my favorite fan works, and with good reason. Most of you know why, but I'm willing to explain anyway. But let's not stall around any longer. Not a moment to spare, Lullaby for a Princess is a very ambitious but also very beloved project that the fandom loved so deeply since it was out in 2015. It's been a huge example of what people loved so much about animated fan works. In addition to the reception, both the project and the original song managed to reach the attention of the general public based on the reaction videos that I have seen along with some karaoke covers, ranging from Megaphoric and Memjay, who were in the fandom, to Caleb Hiles, who is generally well known amongst other musicians on YouTube, such as Eric Calderon or Jonathan Young. This is a rarity for a fan work compared to other projects that I have reviewed. That's not to say these other said projects mean anything less, but it's an excellent accomplishment when something like Lullaby for a Princess is capable of grasping a universal appeal. Fan works are definitely a different source to touch upon, and to an extent delicate. When I reviewed them in the earlier years, I did cut them some slack because, putting things into perspective, I normally don't expect them to be on the professional levels of an episode of Friendship is Magic. These two different sources to me are works of night and day. Fan works involve a small team, if not one person, to put together an animated project. It will take them blood, sweat, and tears to make and deliver something personal and express their feelings from the show. That's not mentioning working around what can be fitting to the show's standards. And based on that experience, it's a good opportunity to forward yourself into something much more professional. It can definitely be a stepping stone for an animation career, whether it's original works or working for a company if presented well with your animated-based resume. I've stated these back when I reviewed Snowdrop, and it all does sound like I'm recapping it all like a broken record. But it does seem appropriate now to recap, especially admitting that I've also made some mistakes when reviewing these fan works. Because I cut them slack, I didn't seem to do well in favor of its creators in what I can offer. By giving an example of this was when I was reviewing Double Rainboom. Nonetheless, it was well animated, well expressive, the music was enjoyable, and it fits the mood, and the characters were true to the source material. I still cringe at that. That was stupid of me to say, and I beat my ass red for it. Even at that time, I stated that the project was a mess. But I cut it some slack because I saw that Zachary Rich was having so much fun with all the references and crossing over to another show. It was a way of expressing his full control on how he would write his own episode of MLP. And overall, I didn't want to come off as such a killjoy. Funny enough, Zachary actually commented on my review and appreciated what I said. But ultimately, it was a project that cannot sit well over time. So with this in mind, fan works are deserving of criticism for the same reasons anyone with any project will need criticism for: feedback and improvement. Since a lot of time has gone by, this is a good opportunity for me to get myself back on track and ask myself this very question: how well have they aged, and do they still hold up in the years to come? In the case of Lullaby for a Princess, I still think it's aged pretty well. It does have some issues though, and don't get me wrong, I still think it's one of the best projects to date. Warpout's animation project was in the works for over 2.5 years, and it was well worth the wait with good reason. He wanted to make the best that he could. If you even look on its channel, there have been several videos behind the works in which I'll save later in this video because I'm sure you all want me to talk about the project itself. The very premise is nothing new. It's another fan work that dives into the origins of the Royal Sisters. However, the magic of this fan work is projected through a different spin on the narrative and hits the right notes of emotions as effectively as the lyrics are explained. The song itself is one of the two major factors that helps the project to a major degree. It narrates the story for the animator, which is a huge advantage as it already has a story laid out for him. Maybe too good of an advantage. Many other animated projects involved having a story that they had to write themselves, and some of them have suffered out of the expense of something insufficient in its narrative or other values that are imbalanced in other projects. Take instance Double Rainboom and Fall of the Crystal Empire. Lullaby for a Princess didn't have to require a writer or any thought to make the story. The lyrics made the turmoil perfectly clear on what Celestia was lamenting about, and all Warpout had to do was provide the visuals. Now some of you are asking, what about Children of the Night? Didn't that project also have lyrics that laid down what was also happening, which results in not having to write a narrative? Not necessarily. Come Little Children was a song from Hocus Pocus where the lyrics are vaguely a message of inviting children to what's arguably a sanctuary. And sure enough, what Luna does is bring young foals and fillies to their expedition via her magic. But she's only selective on who to choose as they are her followers. Also prior to this, she casts a spell on their royal guards and Celestia to sleep along with the first minute of the project, where a pony explains the territorial dispute between her and Celestia. The lyrics never explain anything about that. Children of the Night not only delivers its own meaning of the song, but it's also expanded on its said meaning by those moments to form its own narrative. Now, the whole advantage of having a story laid out could have been lazily slapped together, which is why I don't even consider this as a flaw. And to be fair, there was no fight that was mentioned in the lyrics, nor was their exposition as needed as Children of the Night did. This alone works with the pacing, which is what makes this argument rather debatable, and showing its pros and cons to whichever project is comparable. But part of what's important is not just having a story and characters, but also execution. Considering how many videos Warpout uploaded that showed his work in progress, it was made perfectly clear that he had a vision to bring to life. It wasn't just 2.5 years in the making over nothing. As a result, the visuals are a second major part of what helps this project shine. PonyPhonic's song was a huge favorite of mine at the time when Brony music was at the peak of its fandom's popularity. It has a very calm but very somber tone that fits with the lyrics that revolve around Celestia's lament and aftermath. Comparatively, the visuals did not disappoint. It helped match with the tone of the song perfectly. The colors are very vibrant and gorgeous to look at, most of which are very bright but still managing to complement that somber and tragic tone. The animation is done in a different style, which has been mentioned before, and I still think it holds up. Seeing that other major projects tried emulating the show's accurate look, it's a breath of fresh air. Mind you, I'm not debating over which fan works are better, but it's what helps this project become much more universal than automatically identifying it as something outside of MLP by the general audience. It's done frame by frame with some puppet movements here and there, along with magic that was done in After Effects. It's all combined, but at the right spots to keep the animation consistent. Now, as much as I love the visuals, there are 2 pointers that needed some tweaking. The first of which was the shot here where the rest of Celestia's mane is flowing except for this small stroke near the corner of her ear. It becomes notably distracting because it prevents the rest of her mane becoming very fluent in the rest of the animation. It's a nitpick, but I still feel as though it could be fixed. The second of which is when Luna and Celestia yell at each other with no lip syncing. Yeah, Josh Scorcher talked about this before, but it's just so disorienting that I really can't dismiss it. Something like this happens in the past, yet in the present time she synchronizes her lips. What, was their native language at the time a series of war faces from Full Metal Jacket? Now, you could argue that it's their Royal Canterlot voice, but as explained in Luna Eclipse, they used it on their subjects, and even then they were talking at that volume in the show. It's also worth mentioning that the song has had a verse trimmed down, which I was skeptical at first. When pondered upon, however, it seemed for the better as it would have been too repetitive and choring for the animation to be worked on as is. However, when hearing the song, there's a violin track that was added, which I have mixed feelings about. The added violin track isn't bad, but it's also kind of unnecessary. Now, I don't mean to disrespect Seth Wiley, because he did a great job with his vibrato skills, but it feels like it was trying to make the tone even more somber than it needs to be. Of course, none of these are deal breakers. They're just bits that I'm not fond of, as others needed some legitimately minor tweaks. Nothing is perfect, and that's just fine because it's always nice to have something open for improvement. The most to identify when working on a project, however, is reaching your own personal satisfaction that may be fine enough. And I'm more than certain that the results Warpout was having was definitely efficient. Now, he doesn't get all the credit as he didn't do everything by himself per se. The backgrounds and stained glass illustrations were done collaboratively by Sambaro and C. Maggot, all of which are very fitting to the style of the animation, plenty of curvatures and dramatic colors for the tone of the story. With the help of these backgrounds, nearly every shot carries an impact, from the panning shots of Celestia, the battle sequences where everything was moved at an angle at a fast pace, to every smoothing transition to the next scene. The jump from the present Celestia to her memories with Luna after the stained glass window, and the shift to the ceiling where we see the battle take place. I almost forget half the time that there's another scene coming in. It's that engaging. My personal favorite shot, though, was Celestia's expression where after she defeated and banned Luna, she bursts into tears. I was able to see the gears turn in her head over the fact that she reluctantly banished her sister for the safety of Equestria. It was a very hard commitment, and you don't need prior knowledge of the show, as the span between the two provides the impact alone. In addition, I noticed a change of Celestia's mane when working on this review, where it was originally solid pink, and then her rainbow colors start to show after she uses the elements of harmony. That's a nice touch. Interestingly enough, this brings me back to the works in progress, particularly the original Animatic, most of which are very similar, but very few contrasts have been somewhat debatable. Some liked what the original Animatic represented compared to the final result. It originally had the crowns that resembled the elements of harmony, but were later changed after the airing of the Season 4 premiere, Princess Twilight Sparkle. There was also a different ending where we're jumped back to when Celestia is showcasing the many screens of her memories, presumably based on her ballad for Magical Mystery Cure, and it transitions to the shot that is also seen in the distance. The transition is nice and effective as other transitions were. However, I'm fine with the alterations. The biggest thing I love about these works in progress is that it easily shows how much effort he was willing to put in. It shows he knew what he was doing and what was going to work. And as is, it's made this project such a beloved piece of work despite its shortcomings. It's something that I like to look back to every once in a while, and shows what the fandom is willing to contribute to their love of the show. When you have the chance, be sure to check this out again and maybe let me know if you think it's aged well. While I'm plugging in other content, take a listen to PonyPhonic's work once again. Not just Lullaby for a Princess, but The Moon Rises, Starlight Waltz, and so much more. Their music is wonderful and certainly worth a buck out of your pocket. And to Warp Out, you did an amazing job on this project, and I certainly wish you the best. Should there be any more fan works to review, I look forward to tackling once more. But until next time, this is GoldenFox, and take care.